I'm continuing to urge our clients at SCHIFF Gold to get ahead of the curve. Keep buying. And don't worry that $4,000 gold or $50 silver seems expensive. I just think it's a one-way ticket down. And that's going to be great for gold. Of course, I think once we get above 2% in the 10-year Japanese government bonds, you're going to see, some real fireworks in the markets, not just in Japan, but all around the world. But it was interesting because the government came out and said that even though they're doing this massive stimulus, they don't anticipate increasing the issuance of, Japanese government bonds. Well, how can that be, right? How are they going to run bigger deficits and not have to issue more bonds to finance them? And what I'm thinking,
if you own even a single ounce of gold or silver, what you're about to hear may completely change how you view the next 24 months. Peter Schiff says it's no accident. With gold holding above $4,000, silver above $50, and Asia quietly buying every dip, something big is building beneath the surface. A collapsing yen carry trade, Japan hinting at dumping treasuries, and the early signs of a global rotation out of paper and into real money. Schiff believes 2026 won't just be another up year. It will be the year institutions, retail investors, and central banks all flood into gold at once. So don't anywhere, and let's break it down.
Could be the situation, and I don't know because the Japanese have been a bit reluctant to do this, but it's a smart move. Maybe instead of selling Japanese government bonds, issuing new ones, they'll just sell some U.S. treasuries because they've got over $1 trillion, right? Losing value. The best way the Japanese can stimulate their economy is by selling treasuries, not JGBs. See, because if they run bigger deficits, that's going to spook the bond market even more. That's going to weaken the yen. That's going to push up import prices. It's bad news. And the yen is already weak, near 160 against the dollar. They can solve their problems by selling treasuries and then selling the dollars they get when they sell treasuries to buy yen. And then they can send out that yen to Japanese citizens. And that's great because that'll strengthen the yen, which will give the Japanese more purchasing power, which will help bring down their import prices. And so that's the best way to stimulate the economy without hurting the economy. Because if they stimulate it by selling more Japanese government bonds, then you're going to weaken the yen. You're going to have more inflation. You're going to have more upward pressure on yields. So selling treasuries is great for Japan, but it's going to torpedo the U.S. economy and the U.S. financial markets because selling treasuries pushes up our yields, right? And it pushes down the dollar. And it also causes an unraveling, more so, of the yen carry trade, where people who borrowed yen to buy risk assets in the U.S. or even treasuries now have to reverse those trades, sell out their risk assets to buy back their yen. So some of that pressure may already be what was coming down on the U.S. tech stocks, and we'll see what happens next week as we continue and build on what happened this week, which again was a very significant week in the markets. But one of the reasons I think it was very significant for gold too is the blow up of Bitcoin, right? And because Bitcoin has been overshadowing gold for years, right? It's been stealing all the headlines, stealing all of gold's thunder. And I know it's been very frustrating to the gold bugs to just watch all the crypto bugs getting rich while, gold was going sideways. And in fact, it was, the years of sideways action. Gold peaked out from its big run from sub 300 in 1999 to 1900 in 2011. From 2011 to 2014, gold really didn't go anywhere because it didn't get above 2000 until 2014. And that was about the peak from 2011. So it was during that dozen-year time period where gold holders were frustrated by the failure of gold to make any new gains, that Bitcoin was able to really steal the show by convincing a lot of people that it was the new gold. I really think that there's only one hope that Bitcoiners have to stop this implosion, and that's a government bailout, a U.S. government bailout of Bitcoin. Now, of course, they wouldn't frame it that way. What they might do is Trump might come out and say, because of this big drop in Bitcoin, we're going to buy the dip. We're going to use this opportunity to fill up the strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? If the Bitcoin, lobby that bought and paid for the Trump campaign, if they can convince Donald Trump to buy this dip on behalf of taxpayers, right, which he's really just screwing the taxpayers over. But if the U.S. government, goes into the market and doesn't just buy Bitcoin, but indicates that it's going to buy a lot more, right, to get people excited about front running the trade. Absent that, I just think it's a one-way ticket down, and that's going to be great for gold. Of course, if the government has to bail out Bitcoin by using this strategic Bitcoin reserve, that proves that the whole concept is nonsense. Because if Bitcoin needs a bailout, then clearly it's not a reserve asset, right? If the government has to come to the rescue of Bitcoin, then how is Bitcoin going to rescue the government? Because that's the whole point of having all this Bitcoin. It's supposed to save us. We're supposed to make all this money on this Bitcoin. But if we have to prop it up and prevent it from collapsing, it reveals the truth. So it's going to be pretty hard to try to put lipstick on this pig and spin it as a good move for America to have a reserve of Bitcoin. But and that's what more and more people are going to be doing. So you're going to have a lot more competition in 2026 for the central banks. See, this year and last year, the central banks didn't have to compete with private investors. In fact, private investors were selling. Americans were foolish enough all last year and most of this year, they were selling their gold to the central banks, and they were happy to buy it. But next year, I don't think you're going to see net selling. You're going to see net buying from private investors, both institutional and retail. So now, instead of buying from the public, the central banks are going to be competing with the public to buy gold. Well, where's all this gold going to come from? We don't really mine that much of it. So it's going to come from a higher price. The only way everyone's going to get filled on their gold is if everybody pays a much higher price, which is why I'm continuing to urge our clients at SCHIFF Gold to get ahead of the curve, keep buying, and don't worry that $4,000 gold or $50 silver seems expensive. It only looks expensive compared to where we were, but compared to where we're going, it's going to look real cheap. So you want to buy it again. I'd buy over the weekend again. This is another time I'm going to pound the table and say, don't wait till Monday. Buy more gold at SCHIFF Gold this weekend, and buy silver. It's right back below $50. There's not going to be that much longer where you can buy silver below $50. And you may never be able to buy gold below $4,000. But right now, it's below 4,100, so it's pretty damn close to the floor if that's 4,000. And again, if you haven't already opened your T-Gold account, get started. Get started over the weekend. That's a great opportunity. The last thing we want to do is spend our gold. We just want to accumulate it. We just want to save it. And you can easily do that at T-Gold. Now, if something comes up and you need the money, you could sell. You buy it from us just over spot. Tiny markups and no storage fees. So you're getting in about as cheap as you can to gold and silver. But ultimately, this is going to be the building blocks. I am going to turn this into a payment platform.
If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening beneath the markets, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and press the bell icon. It truly supports the channel. And if you want to stay ahead of every major move in gold and silver, so you never miss an update when the big shifts begin. Thanks for watching. Stay prepared, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.